Okay, very good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll start our extraordinary strategic planning and policy committee agenda for the 12th of March today. First of all, warm welcome to everybody that's come to see us this morning. Really appreciate that. Lovely to have you all here. Okay, we will call for apologies, but I see Bill Harris has walked in the room, so we now have full attendance, so we won't have any apologies this morning. But are there any disclosures of any members' interests this morning? Anyone want to disclose anything? No problem at all.
Sorry, Liz, I'll just disclose a Waikato Tainui because I haven't filled out my paperwork yet, just in case.
Okay, so a conflict of interest for Waikato Tainui, is that correct, Marie? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item, our only agenda item, which is the approval of the 2024-25 draft annual plan, budget and consultation topics. And good morning, Melissa and Ken. We'll hand over to you.
Good morning. Thank you. So through the chair, following last week's council meeting where the decision was made to defer the 2024-34 long-term plan and instead adopt an enhanced annual plan for the coming financial year. The purpose of this report today is to present the draft budget and proposed consultation topics for approval by the committee. So this is to enable the drafting of the consultation document and any supporting material ready for adoption by the committee on the 3rd of April. So noting that this has been quite a joint effort today, I'll hand over to Ken to talk through the details of the financials, and then following that I'll get Lisa to talk through the two consultation topics.
Okay, thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Melissa. And good morning, councillors. Right. Okay. So look, very much the context for the numbers is, as Melissa said last week, you resolved that we would defer the long-term plan that had been worked on and run with the enhanced annual plan. So so the numbers I'm presenting today, and I guess this is important context, these are essentially the year one of the numbers that we were working on as part of that 10-year plan. The remaining 9 years of numbers, obviously, we will we'll work through over time. Okay, so look, I guess first of all, it's the rates position that we should talk about, and of course, this is detailed in the report. Excuse me. So look, essentially, we've landed on the 14.8% that for this draft. We've landed on that 14.8%, which is exactly the same place that we were in prior to Christmas. And of course, we were very public with prior to Christmas. In terms of the, I guess the makeup of that rate or the context of that rate, in gross rates requirement numbers, we had in the Three Waters space 13.9%. Was the increase in the rates requirement in the Three Waters space. Across the rest of the council, it was 17.4%, and that gives us an overall gross average increase of 16.1%. We then deduct a 1.3% growth factor to give us the magical 14.8%, which is the net average rates increase after growth. So that is, I guess, on average, what an existing property owner in Waipa would expect their rates increase to be, on average. Very important terms. From the current year to next year. Okay, so that sets out the rates. We have as an appendix to the report, some indicator property information. So that is attached as an appendix. Look, it's I go back to me saying just a few moments ago, the 14.8% is an average, and you can see that when you look at the indicator properties. Some of those properties are higher, some are lower. very much depends on where the property is, obviously, depends on the type of property it is, and very much depends on the services that those properties receive. Bearing in mind that that some of our ratepayers we do not supply with water, we do not supply wastewater services to, etc. So in other cases, recycling is in all of the urban areas, etc. Recycling is provided, but it's not provided in commercial industrial areas as well. So you will see some variation in those properties. We can certainly take questions on that as required. Okay, now, this is this annual plan. One of the things that we need to do legislatively, we need to do is we do need to, when we prepare an annual plan, and this one is no different, we do need to compare, essentially what is in that annual plan compared to what the relevant slice of the LTP is. So in this case, this annual plan for 24-25 is the comparison is to year 4, the year 4 slice of the current LTP, the 21-31 LTP. So look, you will see on page 7 of the agenda, you will see some changes, from year 4 of the 21-31 LTP. Look, those are pretty important in the actual annual plan document. We will have to provide this information plus more actually, because this is just picking out some of the bigger projects. But we will have to show that comparison. To be fair, the 21-31 LTP is obviously 3-4 years old. There are some significant changes, and of course there are some incredible changes in the economic landscape, which contributes to these figures. Things that we have talked about before, inflation, interest rates, 25-30-year highs since we produced that 21-31 LTP. So look, no surprise that you'll see some very significant changes coming through there. I do want to talk about debt and what the debt position is. That's pretty important because with what has happened in the inflationary and the interest rate environment, debt has become a very important factor. So look, in terms of the numbers that are presented to you, we are expecting at the start of the 24-25 year an opening balance of external debt of $296.8 million. We're expecting new debt of $101.7 million to be taken out during the year, and therefore a closing 30 June 25 balance of $398.5 million of debt. Okay, so that debt number is significant, and it is certainly growing quickly. Okay, actually there is a useful, and in fact I will talk to you about this. So this is on page 6 of the agenda. There is quite a useful pie chart, I believe, showing the split of debt. Okay, so you can see, in the dark blue colour there, like a very significant percentage of Three Waters debt. Okay, so you can see that there. You can also see, again, in terms of the waters, so in the the quadrant, I suppose, between about what is that, between about 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock, that quadrant, if this was represented as a clock, you can see like a mustardy colour with another huge chunk of Three Waters debt in the DC space. In fact, in DC's being development contributions, so that is growth related debt. In fact, you can actually see that with that mustardy colour, and with the lighter blue colour above it, which is the DC roading debt, and then in the green, which is reserves, etc. debt, or the other DC debt, you can see community infrastructure, reserves and community infrastructure. You can see quite a significant, in fact, well over half of our debt is at the end of 2025 is growth related debt. So it is pretty significant. It is worth keeping that in mind. Elsewhere in this report, we have the financial prudence graphs. So so just taking you very quickly through those. So this is page 8 onwards. You can see the debt servicing benchmark. So you can see that we are comfortably below the 15% benchmark. That is applicable to us under the prudence regulations, and that is in our 21-31 financial strategy. We're even more comfortably below the 20% debt covenant benchmark that the LGFA applies to us. In terms of debt affordability, we are comfortably below the debt to revenue benchmark that we apply in our financial strategy, although we are less comfortably below the covenant provision that the LGFA applies. That's at the top of page 9. We do have a margin. That margin is okay, but it's not a great deal of buffer there. In terms of rates income affordability, that this is no more than 65% of our revenue comes from rates. We've got a comfortable margin in there. With number 4 here, so bottom of page 9, top of page 10, we do obviously have a breach here, or a non-achievement of our measure. This rates affordability measure is all about predictability and the rates increase. We use LGCI plus 3%. That would give us room to increase our rates by 6.5%. As I said earlier in the meeting, we're at 14.8%, so we are significantly higher than that limit. That is very much a function of the economic environment that we are in. Essential services benchmark. Look, this measure does not work particularly well for a growth-related council like Waipa. But in saying it doesn't work particularly well, we blow that measure out of the water essentially. So we significantly achieve that measure. No surprise. We are investing incredibly into infrastructure. And then finally, the balanced budget benchmark. Again, we have a non-achievement here. We quite regularly have non-achievement here. A big part of this is in the definitional space, and it also kind of hinges a little bit on us being a growth-related council. So there are some factors that impact into the non-achievement. Okay, look, I think that is really all I need to say on the finances, but very, very happy to take any questions. Actually, sorry, there is just one other thing that I will say. So look, in terms of that 14.8%, which I suppose is a big part of this conversation today. Look, we did quite a bit of work when we were first putting together the LTP in terms of what some of the uncontrollable increases were in the rates increase space. And look, we quantified that at about 16%. So that was the impact of inflation, that was the impact of interest rates, etc. On top of that, and like I say, that equated to about 16% we've come under. On top of all that, we've had massive increases in the recycling space. So we really do have some issues in the recycling space. And then, of course, quite incredible demands for increased service levels. And we see that coming through in stormwater, we see that coming through in wastewater, etc. So the standards are changing significantly. We've got to invest quite heavily to meet those standards. So I'll just round off with that. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely, thank you, Ken. Look, I might just kick off one of the questions that I had, and it just changes from year 4. Just regarding the business accommodation strategy, because it's such a large amount that's been, I guess, added. I thought it might perhaps be quite useful to just put some commentary around that, Ken.
Yes, yep, for sure. So, so look, what that is about, and I guess this is because we have pushed pause, or one factor in this is we have pushed pause on TROI. So we are concerned. Obviously, we do have some amazing taonga that we do need to display, and we are very obviously we're in a situation where at the moment we can't open up that taonga display to the public in the way that we'd like to. So look, we are quite concerned about the building over the road, and essentially what it's not a great terminology for it. The accommodation strategy. Of course, the building across the road has got 3 wings. One of them was being used for the museum. 2 were being used for staff accommodation. Essentially, what their budget is in there for is to do the work necessary in terms of earthquake strengthening, etc., to open up that building so that we can reopen the museum and we can reopen that the other 2 wings of that building to staff accommodation.
Thank you for that. I think you're right. That's perhaps not worded quite correctly, but I think it's worthwhile for our community to understand what that's for. So you don't, and like the 5.9 million is obviously that we've arrived at that number because it's deemed that's what the total cost would likely be. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of information around that yet, so I just wanted to kind of, ask you a bit more.
Yeah, and look to be fair, it's a fairly high level number. So we've there is some more, quite a bit more detailed work that needs to go into fine tuning the plans for that. But essentially, that is provision to reopen that building.
Thank you. Okay, Claire, you've got a question?
Yeah, thanks. I've got quite a few questions. I'm not sure how many I should ask, but could I just get some clarification on the slides that were presented, at the workshop? They were supposed to be circulated. I don't recall. I was expecting them to be emailed, but have they been put in diligent?
They should have come through diligent, but
so they are in diligent.
We'll just have to get governance to check that actually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Apologies for that.
It had some really good that I really like that sensitivity analysis and things like that. Yeah. So anyway, cracking into the particular things in the capital works. So I was looking at the roading on page 22, and I'm concerned that we've just done the Cambridge Connections work, and I couldn't make out whether or not there's any particular projects that are tagged there that are going to, alleviate or look at resolving some of the issues that have been identified in the Cambridge Connections work, sort of that is a short-term intervention. Yeah, obviously it's a very, it's a project that had a really, long view, but I'm sure that Cambridge residents would love to see that there's something planned in the next 12 months that's going to help, so because I noticed also in the operational stuff that the feasibility study about Millisich Place, which was going to be used to look at addressing some of the parking issues, I thought it's off, it's crossed out as well. So yeah, that's one of my bigger questions, I guess, whether or not we can let the Cambridge community know that we're taking into account what we learn from that Cambridge Connections work, and we've got something in that annual plan for the coming 12 months. Yeah. So there's that.
I don't see Dawn in the room.
No.
And she's not.
Roger will support.
And she's not here. So okay.
The only thing that I can add to Claire's comment is that we had been advised on the PSG that actually some placeholder funding was put in the budget. But there's no further definition than that. But I agree with you that it's important that that placeholder funding is still there and can be allocated to solving the current issues that are there in Cambridge.
Some of them, yeah. And then another clarification I had was around the investment.
Sorry, I would seek confirmation that that is still in there. Yeah, so I'm endorsing your request that we need to know if it's still in there.
Okay. And then another question I had in the capital work was in the waters space. And there's quite a bit of telemetry, which is a SCADA investment. So look, I thought in the tranche 1 money that we got, in the water reform, that went to SCADA investment. Yeah. So, or, you know, telemetry, it's work, it's investment that means that you can collect remote data remotely and you don't, yeah. So I thought there was quite a bit of tranche one money that was spent on that. So I'm just querying whether or not there's a double up, yeah, here, and that perhaps it could have been taken out or reduced.
Yeah. So through the chair, some of these questions, sorry, I will have difficulty responding to, and it is really unfortunate we don't have Dawn here. But look, I'm sure they'll be noted, and we can come back with some answers.
Oh yeah, no, and fine. I mean, would really like them clarified because I want our budgets to be really robust. And in fact, some people will go through them line by line and say, hey, what about this? So now I'm moving into OPEX. And on page 30, there's some plan changes where there's no money anymore. So there's Papa Kainga, yeah, in particular. So, because I thought we were actually going to be working on that in the next 12 months. So is it that the budget from last year is actually enough and, you know, we don't need it? Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so that was quite important.
Well, perhaps we'll just stop there for a second, because we do have Wayne in the room,
Yes.
so we
Oh,
may be
yeah,
able to get
Wayne
some
in
of
the
these
room.
answered as we
Yes.
go.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so that was 22.
Pop up the front, Wayne, and we can just get that
Yeah,
clarified.
it's
Thank
on
you.
page 30, and there was, in the budget for 23-24, it was 209,000. Yeah, which is
Just through
pretty
the
generous.
chair, yeah, understand that. Look, we are progressing with the Papakainga plan change. It's on the way, it's on the go now, and so it's funded from our consultant's budget. So your affairs are, yeah, so essentially we've got a budget for it and it's in there.
Excellent. Oh, that's
Okay.
really great because I was really, yeah, would be a bit, yeah, upset if that wasn't progressing. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
progressing.
Sorry. So through the chair. So just on those two plan changes you've just mentioned, Claire. So look, in regard to reading these spreadsheets, very important to note that the 209 and the 50 are in the 23-24 budget. So provided for in there, that work was provided to be to be finished. So therefore was never in the LTP year 4, and therefore is not in the current year. So look, I'm not sure if that's the case. I didn't actually note down exactly what you were talking about in the CapEx spreadsheet, but yeah, very important that the 23-24 number is there simply for comparison purposes. It's not something that's necessarily been removed. Yeah, if it was something that was due to be completed in 23-24.
Would it be helpful if I sent through those telemetry?
Yes, I think it would be very helpful. Actually, I did notice other people were noting them down, which is why I didn't. But I'm just when I saw your plan change one, I just thought it was really important to clarify the spreadsheet that we do have the 23-24 comparative column. Yeah.
And then I do have a question about the Pirongia halls. Okay, so there's yeah, that's on page 33, about 1/3 of the page down. So there was, it says that taken out of the annual plan is 440,000. So I know that there is, some kind of work done on rationalisation of public spaces in Pirongia, and I do know that that's progressing quite slowly, but it's progressing.
Yeah.
I just want some reassurance that the removal of that, or I'm not sure if it is a removal, but that there will be a budget to progress that in the coming 12 months.
Yeah, look, Aisha, I just have to double check that. Oh, actually, sorry, Deborah is waving her hand. Yep.
To explain through the chair, the 440, I think it is actually revenue coming in of them merging all the halls together with the possibility
of selling off part of the halls. Now, how that is actually looking and finalised, but this is what they have indicated will probably happen. So it is not a loss of cost. It's actually a revenue that will be put over to reserve and then used on other capital work on those halls.
That's really helpful, actually, Deb. Because when I just saw the brackets, I just assumed it was actually a removal. Yeah, because I'm keen to see that work. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then on page 35, third to the bottom, it's sports fields improvements. And so that's quite a big reduction. Well, I think, well, no, it's got brackets around it. It might be revenue. I don't know. The point I wanted to make is there's been quite a bit of, I suppose, other reserve and sports neighbourhood amenity premier reserve sort of budgets juggled around. I just wanted to say, I'd rather see the sports fields improved than perhaps more investment in some of those other reserves. I mean, we've not really had a discussion about, are there trade-offs happening? Yeah, because at our last LTP, we got some really strong feedback, you know, from our community that the sports fields were in a poor state and yeah, they really were crying out for some investment. So I just want to check, has that been dropped in favour of, you know, making sure neighbourhood reserves, amenity reserves are actually going to get the work done?
Yeah, so look, what I can clarify, and I do see Sally here who might be able to talk specifically to the second part of your question, but there was 86,480 that was in the in year 4 of the LTP. We have actually removed that. In regard to how that works or prioritisation, etc., it's probably more a Sally question.
If I can through the chair, I know that Brad is online as well, that he can help to answer, but in terms of what was planned in year 4, the CapEx budget for the sports field project has been deferred for consideration through the LTP, and this is the OPEX budget that aligns with that CapEx project. Through all of our capital works, as we're aware, they have all been reduced across the board from that perspective, and that's where the consideration through the LTP has been, will be looked at again from that perspective, but anything I've missed, I'm sure Brad will be able to cover off.
Kia ora tātou. Reasonably good summary there. There is some consequential OPEX that we do need for the 2 fields we have already installed at John Cookhoff Park. But as Claire notes, all the CapEx has been removed for development in year 4. We were in initial discussions with some clubs about improving those fields, but as Selena highlights, they will need to be pushed back to the long-term plan discussion.
Thanks, Brad, for that clarification. Also, Sally. So it does look like there's been a bit of a trade-off, really. Yeah, and so. Was any consideration given to giving it more priority and perhaps taking more budget out of those other parks and reserves?
I think you'll see, Claire, that we have removed quite a bit through our community services budgets in our CapEx space. So we have stripped back as much as we can. Look, if we could keep that in, I think this table was already heard through the previous LTP, as you know, but also subsequently through discussions around artificial fields and things like that. This is a really key driver for sports clubs. But unfortunately, the way to make it work at the moment, we have removed that for the moment.
Thanks. I think that, and the last point I'd like to make is in the, on page 41, to do with water demand management. I'm hoping that's where it is. That's where I put my marker. Because like the way we've got our drinking water set up, we don't actually, well, we haven't had to have water restrictions for the last 2 years, unlikely to have them. So I think there was about $200,000 in that demand management. So I'm just querying if we still need it, or why is it such a large amount, I guess. Yeah. I think it's.
Thank you, Claire. I think that's a question that That's a question a couple of us have had, and with Dawn not in the room, I think what we'll do is we'll ask again for that to be added and an explanation provided, because
it's 238,000 that's in the enhanced annual plan.
yeah, and we've got time. That's right. We've got time to consider all of these items. And just going back to the sports fields, I think it'd be quite helpful to have a detailed sports field by sports field, what's actually happening for the next 12 months. Perhaps we can have that over the next couple of months before we adopt our annual plan, just so we completely understand how that's been rationalised. That's all your questions, Claire? Okay, we'll move to Philip and then Roger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks everyone for today. I had two quick questions, and I'll start with the parks and reserves or sports fields. Again, on the agenda on page 35, around strategic plans on the reserves and things like that, is that relating to the review on sports fields leases, the review on the leases and club fields and things like that?
If I can, through the chair, I can answer that question. No, it's not, Councillor Coles. That's quite separate. The one that you're referring to there is looking at things like our reserve management plans. We are quite far behind in some of our renewal processes there.
Right.
And so, sorry, the renewing of those documents. So that's what that budget's for.
Okay, cool. Excellent. And just the other quick questions, but hypothetical. If we had left the waters in the long-term plan, would we be delaying the long-term plan? And why I'm asking that is I attended Zone 2 meetings on Friday, and talking to some of the councils there in our region, they haven't removed waters from their long-term plans, therefore we're delaying it. So we're just purely delaying it because we took the waters out. Is that hypothetical question?
Yeah, so through the chair, interesting question, councillor. So look, so you're referring to the fact that before Christmas we were working on an LTP that included waters for 2 years, and then removed the waters for the remaining 8 years. Look, I don't think we really had too many options there, because of course we were dealing with a legislative environment that was creating water services entities that would take on our water services from year 3 onwards. So look, I think any council, even until the government made it really clear that they were going to repeal the legislation and essentially just repeal the legislation and not replace it with any alternative at that stage, would really have only been able to, be working on an LTP with 2 years of waters in and 8 years out. I mean, to be fair, I suppose in the background they could have been building something in, perhaps in anticipation of a new government coming in and changing the legislation. They could have been perhaps building in the background, an LTP with waters in for the full 10 years as well. But I would have thought all councils would really have to be doing exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly talking in hindsight, but it appeared the conversation they left to them, they knew there was going to be changes in some way. It was either going to, have the existing government in or new government, and they knew there was going to be changes, so they decided to keep it in, and therefore didn't need to extend. So
no, look, we were working very much to the legislative basis that we could really only include waters for the 2 years, and then from year 3 onwards it was going to be with another entity. Yeah.
All right, Roger, and then Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Ken. I mean, we've had a number of public excluded sessions on this, and it's been very hard for us to keep, mum about what these changes are. But as we see now, we've actually had the withdrawal of the TRY funding, the Cambridge Library funding, the Cambridge Town Hall funding, and the Peoria Cycleways, amongst others. Can you tell me, has there been any approach outside of that public excluded silence with any of the stakeholders to advise them that this is happening, and what message have they been given?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Look, I can comment on some of those. So Ken and I have met with the Cambridge Town Hall chairperson, because that in particular was a project that we'd been signalling that we were hoping to be able to fund, but for the long term. And of course, what we've identified is that we will revisit that in 12 months' time. So we're only doing an enhanced 1-year plan at this point in time. So there just may well be, we talked about a pause, and that's what we're doing. We're not certainly signalling that there's no funding going forward for any of those projects. At this point, we're just taking a breath, looking at what the environment is looking to do, and certainly engaging with those stakeholders as best we can. So I've certainly talked to the town hall, Ken and I, and perhaps there's other councillors and staff that can address some of the other stakeholders as well. So if I divert to Sally and then to Claire and Kirsty.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have contacted all of the potential funders and stakeholders regarding Te Arawai and the pause through this process, so they have been contacted.
Thank you, Sally. Claire and then Kirsty.
Yeah, and Dawn set up a meeting with the Pirongia Cycleway group, and Andrew and I and her and Gary Knighton went and saw them straight that afternoon.
I'm going to make a general statement here.
Can you just,
It would
sorry,
be
sorry,
nice
Roger,
if
can
that
I
had
just
been-
let Claire finish, please? Can I let Claire
All right.
finish? We're just answering your question.
Yeah, so, and we met, and the whole group was there and advised them that it was, again, just as Liz said, it was an annual plan. The project was out, and it would be reviewed when we were preparing the long-term plan, so no guarantee it would come back in either.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Claire. Kirsty?
Through the chair, I have spoken with Jo Davies-Colley as chair of the Cambridge Community Board about the recommended pause for the Cambridge Library, which consequently was not in the current long-term plan. Thank you.
So, Bill?
Kia ora,
then we'll
thanks
come
for
back to
that
Roger.
question, Roger. Just Sally, mana whenua in terms of Te Arawai and in terms of, which is the one I don't like, business accommodation scenario, and changes that are proposed for the museum, especially with Unuku. I'm not aware of mana whenua having been consulted about those changes.
So if I can, through the chair, there have been updates provided. So I would need to talk to Bill around those connections. I'm happy to do that.
And
Can I finish off now? I'd just like to say.
No, not just yet.
that-
No, sorry, Roger, just let me get to you. So I just wanted to round this off, and I will come back to you in a moment. Just if you recall in some of our discussions that I suggested to Mayor Susan that we would ensure that between her and I and staff and senior staff, that we would contact all stakeholders, because the last thing we wanted to do was for this to be a surprise in a public forum. So I feel really confident, and we did make that very clear to all councillors that we would ensure that the appropriate people were heard before, well, we got to them obviously before they heard, or, so yeah, happy to hear from you, Roger.
I'm just going to say I'm not aware of that advice being given to council, that these particular stakeholders would be given information outside of the public excluded environment. I mean, we're asked as councillors to respect that ethic. And at the very least, I think there should have been a council discussion about that to endorse that approach, and that did not happen. So
I think that I'll let other councillors speak to this, because I think you're incorrect, Councillor Gordon.
Look, my understanding was pretty clear that when we workshopped this budget and the numbers became apparent, and therefore the consequences, we were specifically asked by staff to keep this confidential, to give them time to go and give a heads up to affected parties. And off the top of my head, I believe we were asked for 2 weeks, which I thought was ample. So that was my understanding. I hope it was done. It gives me comfort what I've just heard from the staff. But yeah, I was pretty clear on that. Thank you.
If I may, it's a specific in terms of the listing, and the line 2553 and 5025, which is the Resource Recovery Centre. The Resource Recovery Centre shows a withdrawal of funding of 1.755 million, and yet there's an allocation of 1066 million to Resource Recovery Centre, BOF. Can you explain what?
Please, Roger, so we can keep up.
I'm sorry, I don't have a page number on my Diligent, because as you know, Diligent isn't functioning.
Yeah, but not on his screen.
Back to page 11, it says. Oh, page 22 of 49.
Oh, thank you, Roger. So page 22 of 49, we'll just move to let everyone find the line for that.
No, that's not it.
That's the wrong
either.
number.
Sorry. No, it's not showing.
If you could just give us the, the number on the left-hand column.
I've given you that, 2553 and 5025.
Oh, they're not in order. Page.
So it's page 20, it's the bottom two lines of community facilities.
Through the chair, so 5025 will be funded through better off funding, and that's why that line was separated out of the total cost of 1.7. So it's two projects. One is council funded, and then the better off funding.
Okay, thank you,
It's the same project.
Yolanda.
So the better off funding is removed?
No, so it's that 1066 that you see on the second line. That's the better off funding.
I was under the understanding that better off funding had to be now allocated to water related projects.
No, I don't think that's correct. There hasn't been direction yet. There may be direction in the future, but the briefing we got last week, councillor, was that we may be directed in the future to do that. Yeah. But I'll let Susan respond as well.
Only if it hasn't already been committed.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's a very important point. Yeah, if it's been spent or committed, then it's fine. Yeah, but there is some risk that the rest may have to be diverted off to waters. Yeah.
And I see that there is a very difficult on this Diligent not working, but Road to Zero projects. I was also under the understanding that nationally that funding was being withdrawn, and yet we've got an increase to that in our budget of 664. Does that mean we're going to get more speed humps around town?
Do you have a page
Number
number?
23.
I can't tell you, sorry.
It's 23.
4410. Yeah.
Page 23, everybody. Okay, road to zero.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I think we'll just add that to the Dawn and Brian list. So it looks like a variance, a decrease in funding.
No, it's
Or
an,
no?
it's an increase in funding.
The bottom line, Liz.
There's
An increase
two
in
lines
funding?
for road to zero.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've got an increase there of 664, 688. Okay, we'll pop that in the request to Dawn and Brian to provide some
we
more
ask
explanation.
What that funding's for as well?
Absolutely,
Please?
absolutely, yep. No, good question, Roger. Okay, Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, two things. I wanted first to refer to Phil's question, and my understanding was that the main reason we're deferring the long-term plan and going with an enhanced annual plan is, timing and staff workload management, but more importantly, hoping we'll have more clarity around waters in particular, and able to achieve a long-term plan with greater certainty and reducing the risk of having to do an amendment to the long-term plan in the future. So is that a fair comment?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, councillor, as discussed, yeah, last week when council met and passed that resolution. Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you, Andrew. Now, do you want to carry on?
yeah,
Thanks, Andrew.
all good. So the other thing, page 7, and I know we covered this in the workshop, but so we've got a reduction of 68 million, I wish, 68 million in the capex for year 4. It's what we need to have here is the expected closing debt at the end of 2024 for it to, because I looked at the numbers here and it took me a while to figure out that that's the missing element to make it add together. So just when we go out with this, that would be nice to have that to yeah, thanks.
Okay, all right. We'll go to Monty and then Marcus.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to respond to that. The closing debt position for 24-25 is 398 million. It's in page 6.
23, 24.
Oh, the starting position? Yes. Okay, I'm with you. Okay, cool. I'll just keep going. I just want to make one sort of general observation comment. And it is, I think that this paper that staff have prepared is really good, okay? So thanks to the team. For me, it gives a really clear financial picture of the district, and it's really obviously a story of a growth council that has to provide for growth. It's a story of the massive inflation that's gone around the globe. You can just feel it coming through the numbers. And it's a story of us beginning to get up towards our debt ceiling, okay? And so those 3 things are the story behind this. And I'm really, really pleased that now all of that is in the public domain, because I think it's really important that everyone in Waipara understands this. So this, for me, I reread it again this morning. I was thinking, yep, that's good stuff. So it's really important what we've been doing this morning, going line by line through the CapEx and OpEx spreadsheets. That's all good stuff, and I think it's stuff we should do. And I look forward to that as it goes through consultation, because we'll fine tune it and get it right. But don't want everyone to lose sight of the big picture, and that the big picture is what this is telling. And I actually personally, I'm really pleased this is out there, and it really puts the onus on this organisation now that we're in this position to be super focused on our finances, which I think is a really good thing. So, there's going to be real discipline going forwards. This is only a 1-year snapshot, but, it's indicative of what the medium term's going to be unless the landscape changes for funding options and the water space. So, I look forward to this consultation, and I also look forward to the next LTP that we're going to roll straight into. So yeah, for me, really important context setting. I'm very pleased to have it out there. So thanks, team.
Thank you, Monty. I think, personally, I absolutely 100% support those comments. You've articulated that perfectly. Okay, Marcus?
I've got a question for you, Brad. I'm just wondering, have you been talking to Hamilton City Council with what they've been doing about their outdoor spaces and the non-mowing project that they've been doing with the cost savings and stuff and the ecological benefits as well?
Not directly. When I was at Hamilton City Council myself, going back 5 or 6 years ago, we did trial some of that measures as well back then. It does have its place. I'm not saying it doesn't, but there is also sometimes higher maintenance requirements when you do come to cut those bases down, unless you're sort of connected for hay, then it does take a lot longer. So we can definitely explore some of that ourselves in this.
Well, they've just recently finished doing a new study around that, and there's a piece in the Waikato Times yesterday about the savings and stuff and the benefits that that they'd noticed, which may be different from when they'd tried it, X many years ago.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. We can definitely link up with them.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. We'll go to Roger.
Yeah, thanks. Whoops, turn the speaker on. And again, it's just one or two of the line entries that I think we need to be aware of, and we need to ask that it's not going to be an ongoing strategy. And I recognise that we've taken percentages of growth projects, etc., and some percentages off level of service. But I think what concerns me is that the reductions in renewals, because we've got to keep the quality and the standard of our assets up to scratch. And I'd just like a comment, I don't know who from, probably Ken in the first instance, that the reduction in renewals allocations within our budget is just a temporary situation, and that we're not going to see reduction in renewal allocation in future years.
Well, I might just answer that actually. I think that's up to us when we do our long-term plan. So we'll have the opportunity to, again, take a look at all of the budgets in 12 months' time and ensure that we're not going to be putting our district at any kind of risk, or that we're scrimping and saving in areas that, we feel is wrong. So look, the annual plan is just 1 year. That's all we're doing now. And in 12 months' time, we're going to be looking at it much, the long-term plan, of course, 10 years.
Just highlighting that to see a reduction in renewals allocation is actually not good, and I don't like to see that. Now, when we talk about going into the LTP and the fact that it may provide us with an opportunity to revisit some of these, my understanding is it is dependent on something happening in the Three Waters space that takes the impact of Three Waters out of the balance sheet of council. What happens if that doesn't go? Because I'm still concerned there's a lot of unknowns in that Three Waters space.
Right. I'm going to defer that question to Ken and probably to Susan, because I think there's maybe some work at a mayoral level that is occurring as well.
Yeah, look, so through the chair, I mean, it would be obviously very, very helpful to have far greater clarity in regard to the water space, and the government is promising indication of that in the not too distant future. So they're talking about mid-year this year, providing indication of their intent in the water space, with legislation following towards the end of this current calendar year, and into next year, etc. So so I mean that would be very helpful. Look, there are other mechanisms as well that could change the landscape. For instance, infrastructure funding and financing mechanisms. So there are some councils, so in fact some quite close neighbouring councils who have taken up some of those IFF mechanisms. They are complex, they are expensive, but we know that the Department of Internal Affairs is working with those councils. Those councils are advocating very, very strongly for changes in that regime that could make them much more of a proposition for Waipa, and that would achieve the debt not being on our balance sheet, but being on within a special purpose vehicle. So that's a mechanism as well. We also know that the LGFA are looking at potentially revising their covenant provisions, which would obviously give us some greater balance sheet capacity as well. So look, there are multiple potential mechanisms out there. And just unfortunately, we can't necessarily bank on them. At the end of the day, we are going to obviously have to adopt an LTP by June 25. On utilising the best conditions available to us at the time. We're hoping the landscape will be clearer, and we're hoping some of these mechanisms will come through. Now, Chair, I think you said you'd go to Susan in terms of potentially waters and the Waikato. So
through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, really good summary there of sort of some of the relief valves that may be available to us, of which I only, we don't really have a whole lot of control over some of those. But look, update in terms of waters space. Waikato Water Done Well is a report that's been produced by Vaughan Payne as a result of, it's come out of the Waikato Mural Forum, had a meeting actually yesterday, so it's very hot off the press. And at very elementary sort of stages in terms of propositions around aggregated water services, where it would be spatially, how the numbers would stack up, what the actual vehicle would look like. Still very early days in terms of those conversations. And I think the time frame is something like the 22nd of July. We're going to meet again and have a report back, which should have a clear recommendation from that working group around what would be a potentially good option for the Waikato. Interestingly, the numbers, as I say, are still very rudimentary at this point in time, but there's an appetite around the region for collaboration. That would be fair to say, I would think, and probably made more acute by the financial or fiscal situation we find ourselves in. Obviously, not everybody has the same situation, but long-term aggregation of water service is certainly something most councils are looking at seriously, and that work's been driven through the forum.
Thanks, Susan. So we're going to go Bruce, Lou, and then Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an easy one. And on our indicated properties, I noticed in Munkatautari, Pirongia and Kakapuku, that word area has crept in. There's rural, residential and residential, but the word area instead of rural. Is there a reason for that? Just area.
Look, so councillor, we used to talk through the chair, we used to talk about wards, and in effect, wards are still incredibly important in the correct terminology in terms of electoral type purposes. But yeah, for rating purposes, we now use the term area. So it's talking about the area. So and distinguishing it from other rating areas. Because each area has its own area targeted rate. They differ between the 5 rating areas. Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. Lou?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I quite understand people's concerns here, and I raised a few of these yesterday, but I would make the point that this is an annual plan. This is an enhanced annual plan. It is not an LTP. All right, there will be issues that we cannot address immediately because the government's changing a lot of the subsidies that we're in. Just take Wakakatahi, for example, their redirection. They're actually focusing now not on cycleways and on local roads, but actually on highways. So all of these changes are coming through at the time that we're making this. We will have a better direction a little later on. I do know that some things are cut. When Councillor Gordon talked about renewals, one thing that rose me particularly was like water meters. We've got nothing in water meters. Water meters do need replacement at times.
No, it's a bigger element in the water meters.
There is a bigger element. I must apologise. I just saw that skimming through. But what I am saying is that we've got to realise we are working very hard to give the public an overview in the short term so that they can look and see what we're dealing with. And I think that's a critical issue here. As Councillor Montgomery stated quite readily, we have given these figures earlier, but we were not allowed to release them. Now the public can actually see what we're dealing with, and they can actually have their input as necessary. Please remember, this is only an enhanced annual plan, not an LTP.
Thank you, Lou. Okay, Mike.
Thank you, through the chair. Just coming off the back of Ken's comments around potential, and I'll come to that in a moment, but I guess Mike alluded to that whole heading towards towards the debt ceiling. And I think that's been a good reason why we've actually chosen to do this enhanced annual plan, to sort of take stock, take breath, let the community know actually where the state of the nation is in terms of Waipa. And one of the questions in there is give us your feedback on have we got this balance right. So I think that's really important. Of course, if you get towards a debt ceiling, it also reduces massively opportunity to take those wins when they're presented to us. And if you can't buy them, or you can't fund them, or you can't access them because you're at your debt ceiling, then it's lost opportunity, okay, for future ratepayers. So another good reason why we're just taking stock. Off the back of opportunities, and I'm not going off the reservation here because we have had a couple of discussions around Waipa looking at business opportunities to create more revenue, because it's either reduce service, reduce capex and opex, or create more revenue. So creating more revenue is through subsidies, which is probably increasingly difficult, through increasing rates, which none of us wants to do, or finding other ways of creating some business revenue, whether it's partnership and that sort of thing. So I'd just like the community to consider that, not for right now, but as we head into a new LTP in a year's time, how can we collectively, together, possibly partner to create some more revenue for Waipa District Council that's actually going to benefit business, residents, ratepayers, and everyone in between. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Ken, did you want to respond to that?
Look,
Oh, no, sorry. I thought, no, Gary was going to respond to
sorry.
Ken.
Sorry, Ken, didn't want to drop you in it. So with the government policy settings the way they are at the moment, we're required to have a lot of infrastructure ready for 20% more growth than our high growth projections. Now, with the superheated economy now dropping off, the DC revenue has dropped off. When the cost of money decreases, I imagine that the rate of DC revenue will increase substantially as sections come to the market. DC revenue will come on board. That doesn't necessarily affect your debt to revenue ratio in terms of the way in which we portray it in the annual plan. What that does do is it reduces your debt quite substantially. So in terms of other revenue streams, there's a latent amount of money sitting there in the ground waiting to be recovered. It's entirely contingent upon the economy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to go, Claire, and then I'm going to go around the room and just make sure for those who haven't had the opportunity to speak, make sure that there's nothing else that still needs to be added.
Yeah, so I just wanted to sort of respond to what Councillor Pettit said. I agree totally. When Monty was sort of praising the format that we have for the annual plan, just a glaring omission for me, and because I think ratepayers are going to say, well, what are you doing about alternative funding streams or business opportunities? I hear what Gary's saying about the DC revenue that we can sort of expect to collect, but that is also something that we have, like that economic cycle, and the speed with which they come in. We don't have control over that. In fact, that's one of the bigger contributors, of our situation now. I do think our ratepayers will be thinking, well, why aren't you turning your mind to ways that more money can come in so that you're not always coming to the ratepayers for that extra, and also about opportunities that come up and we can't take them up, because we just don't have, that headroom. Yeah, so I certainly support that. I was going to ask whether or not we're going to speak in detail about the consultation document, so that's going to be a separate thing.
Yeah, we're going to do that shortly.
Cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, no, look, thanks, Claire. I just want to make sure that there's no other questions or comments. Andrew?
Yeah, I did take up Roger's point about renewals. I've had a quick look at it, and while there's ups and downs a lot in there, I think we're actually spending at least as much on renewals as was in the fourth year of the the current long-term plan. Yes, inflation's had an impact, no two ways about that.
I'm happy with the rule.
You're good. Bruce is good. Mike said Roger's good. Roger, question?
Although I'm raising points, much in favour of the advance. I'm actually in favour of the option of the enhanced annual plan, as I think it's the only way we can go.
Great. Yeah, Philip, you good? Bill, any comments?
Yeah, I'm in favour of the enhanced annual plan. Would like to know what term we're using for the, what is it, business accommodation? Because we talked about it and we've talked about the need for that title to change, but we haven't actually talked about what it's going to be changed to. And are the staff going to take care of that alone, or are we going to discuss that at this table?
Okay, I'll leave it. I think we'll leave it with staff in the first instance, and we'll have them come back to us with something suggested. Is it okay, Bill? Yeah. Dale Marie?
Tēnā tātou. I te tuatahi, kia tau te mauri ki roto I tēnei whare, I tēnei wā. I just want to thank the team for all the hard work that they've done. I tautoko what Monty said and Claire as well. And on the back of what Roger said about all the public excluded sessions, I'm glad that the public can see now the hard work that's gone into this, because that was hard work. And the reason why we had to go there was because this is hard work. And after being at the Pokai on the weekend and in significant ones, people have asked me why so many public exclusion workshops, because this has been bloody hard. So yeah, thank you to the team who've put so much work in over there. Tēnā koutou.
Thank you, Dale Marie. I'm going to say Marcus, Claire, Monty, Susan, all good? We'll move on to the consultation topic shortly.
Look, other than just to say, nobody wants to be in this position, and just to emphasise probably Monty's whistle-stop tour about the story that the paper tells, and I guess ultimately it would be remiss of us to not take the fiscally responsible route. But I'm not saying we're liking it, just saying.
Thanks, Susan. That's great. Okay, so look, we'll now move to Lisa. We're just going to talk about the consultation topics as outlined in the paper. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might just preface this part of the paper by saying that the consultation document is going to be largely storytelling this year. We've got quite an in-depth story to tell around our financial position. We have quite an in-depth story to tell about growth and how that affects us as a council. In terms of consultation topics themselves, as outlined there, we've got the Cambridge Water Tower, which is something that needs to be actioned due to the health and safety component. And then we've got the overarching story about our financial picture. And look, there's been a lot of hard decisions that have had to have been made around this table in the lead up to this point. We know that we've tried to strike a balance in terms of what we're delivering to our community and limiting rates. And that the second topic will be asking the community if they think that we have that balance right.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any other comments or suggestions? Okay, we'll go Claire and then Monty.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I am pretty happy with what's being proposed, except there's this issue about, that the hard cuts that we've had to make, the really tough budgeting. And I'm just going to put it out there. Would you entertain maybe for a short list for like Cambridge and Te Awamutu, looking at what was in and what was just missed out, and whether or not people could vote on, moving things up and down the list. I mean, as an example, I guess, I highlighted in Cambridge about probably a desire to see some traffic or transportation action to alleviate, congestion, rather than spending it on, the clock tower or whatever, or the water tower. In Te Awamutu, I was wondering whether or not that proposal to do with the Homes Garage might actually, it's not on the list. Maybe there would be something that would be sacrificed to get that higher up the list, because I just think it's a way that the community maybe can have a bit of say that we've done our best to try and get the balance right. but yeah, maybe the community would like the chance to have a vote, so it would just be a short list of the key, I suppose, projects that are still in, and then a couple that were out that, might, be slotted in above those ones. Prioritizing a bit different. Anyway, I don't know if you want to have a talk about that. Yeah, I'd like to see something like that.
Thanks, Claire. I'll let Lisa respond and then we'll come to Monty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the difficulty we have is that this is an annual plan and we have some expectations that we will need to manage as part of that process as we head into the next LTP. And I would see that conversation that you've just referred to as being part of our pre-engagement as we lead our community through the journey to get to the next LTP phase.
Yeah, Lisa, I think that's wise. I think, that pre-engagement for the long-term plan makes probably better sense, so we can take a thorough look at all the projects across the district. Monty and then Roger.
Yeah, if I could just quickly respond to that. I mean, we've dipped our toe in this participative sort of democracy space, and this enhanced annual plan's on super tight timeframes. So I don't think there's time for it now, but it's a really valid suggestion for the LTP consultation going forward. I'd always advocate that it's kind of not just a grab bag that people are voting on, but coherent plans. Because you sit around this table and you try and come up with a coherent plan, but there's optionality, but just grab bags kind of gets messy. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on that. Just on the consultation, the only thing is, Lisa, I'd swap the order around. Always start big, go small. The first question is the financial picture, and we're always hearing from people who want us to minimise rates. I want to hear if there's a constituency out there who says, no, we want to pay heaps more and we want heaps more services and this is what we want our towns to look like. And so that's the big question. And if people want that, we can do it, right? And, you tend to be hearing from the people who don't want to do stuff rather than people who do want to do stuff. So this is an opportunity for them to do it.
Okay, thank you for that, Monty. Roger?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. And Lisa and I have had a couple of chats over the last couple of days. One of the suggestions I would make, now recall back to the last LTP when we had, I think, 5 principal topics that we were consulting upon. Parongi was one, Te Kutu was another. But if somebody wanted to make a general comment, they had to click through this page and click through that page and click through that page to find an area within the consultation document that they could respond with whatever issues they have. And I think that needs to be more prominent and upfront to give them the opportunity. One of the words that, Lisa, you've used is that currently in Cambridge we've got an uprising because there are a number of issues in Cambridge that people are getting very distraught about. Lack of parking, speed bumps, ongoing cycleways, road closures, lack of consultation, and we talked about the lack of consultation with the bridge issue, that didn't occur and people got the information on the bridge. They didn't get it until it appeared in the paper. So there's that's a concern as well. There's a concern about the new public transport. So everywhere you go in Cambridge currently, there's a reaction about what's happening in our town. So there needs to be opportunity for people to express that to us and let us know what their thoughts are. I'm not too sure that the water tower is the principal issue that people in Cambridge are concerned about.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right. I understand that we are in the middle of a lot of things happening in our towns at the present time, but I'll let Lisa respond to that in the first instance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just in response to the first part of that question, there will be, we now have a new online consultation tool called Have Your Say. There will be an opportunity for people to provide general feedback, as there will be in a submission form that will be a part of the consultation document.
Thank you. And look, and I just want to remind everybody, you know, around this table of our responsibilities as elected members to ensure that we are continuing to respond back to our ratepayers. I get many questions on a daily basis, and I do my best, through staff to make sure that we respond in the appropriate way, because there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. And it takes, this is a really big organisation, and there's a huge amount of work that goes on, and I guess it's very difficult sometimes to understand what our work program might be, or how we are responding to particular projects as well. So I always find that one-on-one conversation with ratepayers is really valuable. Help people understand what the current situation is, because often if there are, if there's people who are, concerned about projects, you can often appease them through just a lot of explanation, and that one-on-one kind of, I think, works particularly well. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Councillor Gordon, but, like yesterday I went off to residents, and once the story is explained, I do find, there's a lot more understanding around the table, around our table, but we need to make sure that information is getting out to our ratepayers as well. And that's what we're elected to do, is to help people understand that bigger picture. Philip, you've got a question around the consultation document?
Just on that. So I'm just on that, really in favour of catching up with people. As you say, you may not necessarily agree with them all the time, but it's really important that we meet with them and explain them and give them an opportunity to be able to talk. But just with your, was it? Yeah. So those, when they submit a question, that'll go directly to the appropriate staff member for answering, or who answers those questions?
So the consultation document, Councillor Coles, is.
But have your say, or
yeah, look, I'll answer that for you. So all the feedback is going to come to us as elected members, because this is a consultation document for the annual plan. So it'll all come to us. You'll see all the feedback, and then we will make our decision around the table, and then everyone will get a response back. So we run our normal process here.
Sorry, I misunderstood it. I thought, so that's to do with this advanced annual plan, not to do with projects that are going on in town.
Okay, so we are.
Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah. So we are talking about the topics and the opportunity for our ratepayers to provide feedback for our enhanced annual plan.
Right, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Misunderstood that. Thank you.
Right, are there any other comments around the table? We do have a recommendation on our agenda that this is the next, great, right. So it's recommendations got A, B and C. So Susan is going to move the recommendation. Mike Pettit is going to second it. All in favour? Against? Carried. All right, thank you everyone. That was a great discussion, okay? Very robust, great discussion. So what we're going to do now is we're going to end our meeting. Now, I have to apologise, because I asked Dale Marie to do a karakia at the beginning, and then I had brain fog for some reason and I forgot. Is it appropriate to do an ending karakia, Dale Marie? And then we'll close the meeting after that.
So you would have noticed when I had my first corridor in here today, I did something quite little, because we did forget that today.
My apologies.
And I will just check with the mana whenua in the room if he would like to close up today, but if he wants to leave that rako with me, I'm fine with that too. Ka pai.
No, I thought you'd open.
Ai, I rungo koe. Kia tau te Māori, kia tau te mana, kia tau te whenua, tūturu whakamaua kia tīna, haumie, huie, tai. So for you, Gordon, it's just settling everything for today. See, Phil knew.
Okay, everybody. Again, that now brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. We'll break for more.